Today I'm going to teach you how to crochet this very special pot holder. Ignore that I haven't woven the ends in yet. What is so special about this pot holder? This entire pot holder is crocheted in only one row of stitches. It might look like we have 12 rows of double crochet, but this is all one row and we mimic 12 rows of double crochet stitches. This entire project only takes 18 stitches, which if you count the chain stitches, then it's 36, but still, this entire thing is very few stitches and only one row. And with this, I want to challenge you. I am calling this the Hot Pad Challenge. And I am challenging anyone who watches this video to crochet this one row pot holder. And if you post it online, use hashtag potholder challenge so I can see your amazing creations. I do need to say one thing. There's a little bit of debate in my mind if this is technically one row or not. You're going to see how this works up, and then at the end I'm going to talk through kind of that debate. So stick around for that because I want to hear your thoughts. Now I highly recommend you watch my most recent hack video and watch the last hack, I think it's the last one, where I show how to mimic 2 rows of double crochet at once. That'll give you a really solid foundation for tackling this project. I'm going to go through this video in 2 parts. The first section is going to be going over the concept. The second part will be the pattern itself. I highly recommend watching the concept part because it'll help you be able to customize this technique. But if you really just want to make the pot holder, you can jump ahead to the tutorial. Quick note, I'm using a worsted weight 4 yarn and a 5.5mm crochet hook. For hot pads, there is some concern about using acrylic yarn. I've never had an acrylic yarn melt when using as a hot pad, but there are some concerns it could melt. You've got to use your best judgment on whether to use acrylic or another type of fiber. All right, let's go. As we take a look here, I'm going to start off by explaining the basic concept. So I've got a slip knot on my hook, and the first thing we want to do is to make our foundation chain. Now, however many chains you work, that's how many stitches you're going to have. So I'm going to chain 7 for this example. So this is my chain of 7. Now we are ready to work the first row, which is going to be our only row. For this example, I'm going to work a stitch that is the height of 4 double crochet, and it's going to mimic the look of 4 double crochet. For our first stitch, we're going to use something called an alternative turning chain. You may have heard of it referred to as stacked single crochet, same thing. I've got another video that explains more about the alternative turning chain and its benefits, but essentially it's a stitch that allows us to skip the turning chain, and it's going to count as the first stitch of our row, and we customize how tall it is based on the stitch we're working. So a double crochet is the height of 2 single crochet. So for every row of double crochet that we're mimicking, we need to stack 2 single crochet. For this example, my really tall stitch is going to mimic the appearance of 4 rows of double crochet. So to know how many single crochet I want to stack up, I multiply it by 2. So I'll need to work 8 single crochet stacked on top of each other. So let's first look at how to work the stacked single crochet. I'm going to work in the back nub of my chain. So the front of the chain has this V shape. We're going to work in the back nub. So this is the back nub of that first chain I want to work in, and I'm going to insert my crochet hook under that back nub, which I tend to work my chains a little tightly, so I gotta loosen it up there. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 2. So essentially, we've worked a single crochet stitch. We want to stack 8 of these on top of each other. To stack them, I'm going to find the left vertical strand of the single crochet I just worked, and I'm going to insert through here from right to left and work a single crochet. So I'll yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. I've now stacked up 2 single crochet, and we're going to repeat that process until we've stacked however many we need for our project. In this case, I need to stack 8 because 8 is twice 4, and I'm going to mimic 4 rows of double crochet all at once. So it's find that left vertical strand, insert underneath it from right to left, and work a single crochet. So it's insert from right to left, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And I'll just keep working this, repeating it, and stacking up these single crochet until I have the number I need. Alright, so here I've stacked up my 8 single crochet. Another way I would describe this is it's an alternative turning chain to a height of 8. And this stitch is going to be the height of 4 rows of double crochet, and this counts as our very first stitch. So if you remember from my tutorial showing how to mimic 2 rows of double crochet at once, you'll remember that there's kind of 2 parts to the stitch. Every stitch we work is going to connect to the previous stitch. So we need to know where it connects to the stitch, and then it's going to be this pattern of yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling up a loop, and so on and so forth. Don't worry, we'll get into it. The first thing we need to know before we start working the stitch is where on the previous stitch it's going to join. Now, regardless of how many rows you are trying to mimic, the pattern's going to be the same. This right here is my top single crochet. I'm not going to work there, and I'm not going to work in the second one from the top. But in this third stacked single crochet from the top, I'll connect there, skip the following stitch, connect here, skip the following stitch, connect here. And then the last spot I'll connect will be in the foundation chain from the beginning. So no matter how tall it is, you always skip the top 2 stitches. You're not going to connect there. You'll connect in the third one and in every other one all the way down. Now that we know where we're going to connect, let's talk about how we actually connect. Here's the pattern that we're going to repeat for this stitch. We'll yarn over, then we're going to insert in the next spot on our previous stitch. Since we haven't connected at all to this alternative turning chain, our first spot is going to be this third single crochet from the top. So skip this single crochet, skip that single crochet, and find this third one here. Once I find it, I'm going to insert with my hook underneath it from right to left. So I'm working in that left vertical strand, same as when we were stacking the single crochet. Now I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Okay, so we yarned over, we inserted, we pulled up a loop. We're going to repeat that pattern going down. We yarn over, we're going to go to our next connection spot. So we just connected here, we're going to skip the single crochet below it and go to the next single crochet. So I'm working in every other single crochet that's stacked up. And I'm going to go to my next spot and insert my hook from right to left. Then yarn over and pull up a loop. And repeat. Yarn over, skip a single crochet, go down to here, insert my hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now we just have one more of these single crochets to work in. We're not going to work in that one. What we're going to do to finish it up, we're going to yarn over, and because we're at the base here, we're not going to work there, but we're going to work in our foundation chain. And you guessed it, I'm going to insert, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Because I am going to be mimicking the height of 4 double crochet rows, I will have a total of 9 loops on my hook. So you'll have 2 times the number of rows you're working plus 1. So 2 times 4 rows that I'm mimicking is 8 loops, plus 1 brings my total loops to 9. And now to finish up the stitch, we're just going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops at a time until we're left with 1 loop on the hook. So that's yarn over, pull through 2 loops, 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 and yarn over, pull through 2 loops. We're left with just 1 loop on our hook. And that is going to be the first stitch that mimics the height of a double crochet. We're going to repeat that process, but instead of working in this alternative turning chain, we're going to work in the stitch we just completed. So the steps are the same, but we've got to figure out where are we inserting. Here's how we're going to figure that out. If I look at my stitch here, I kind of have these V's pointing to the left. If we look all the way down, pointing to the left, okay? We're going to work underneath pairs of those strands. But the question is, which pairs of strands? What you want to do is you want to look and see where did you connect to the previous stitch. So this stitch here connected to the alternative turning chain right here. That means we're going to work under these 2 strands. So our first pair of strands right here, we're going to skip and go down to these 2 strands right here. Then we'll skip that pair of strands and work under this pair of strands. And we'll do that repeating pattern of working in every other pair. Let me show you what I'm describing. So to work the stitch, we yarn over, and then we're going to insert and pull up a loop. So the first spot we're going to insert is underneath these 2 strands right here. Okay? Then yarn over and pull a loop up through both of those strands. And now repeat, yarn over. Okay, where do we work next? Well, we're not going to work in those pair of strands directly below. We're going to skip that pair and go to the pair below it. Again, you'll also see that this pair right here is what connected to the stitch to the right of it. So I'll insert underneath both of those strands, yarn over, pull the loop up through both of those strands. Repeat, yarn over, skip the next V, go down to the pair of strands below it, and that pair of strands connects to the previous stitch. And I'm going to insert my hook from right to left underneath both of those strands, yarn over, pull up a loop. All right, then we're going to yarn over. Now we only have one pair of strands left. We're going to skip that and we're going to work in our chain. So the next chain from the foundation chain, insert in that back nub, yarn over and pull up a loop. And now to finish up the stitch, it's yarn over and pull through 2. So that's once, this is twice, this is a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time, a sixth time, a seventh time, and an eighth time. All right, you might be thinking this looks kind of sloppy, this looks kind of messy. I promise as we go further, it's going to start to become more and more defined. But you can kind of already start to see we're getting this double crochet look, and it looks like 4 rows stacked up, even though it's only 1 stitch. Let's go through the steps again, and I'm going to give you another way of thinking about this. So I yarn over, and I'm going to go to the pair of strands that connected to the stitch before it. So it's skipping that first pair and going down a pair. Insert underneath both strands from right to left, yarn over and pull up a loop. So if you think about working a double crochet, we yarn over, then we insert and we pull up a loop. So those 2 stitches, those are going to mimic my top double crochet. And then we're going to repeat. So yarn over, skip the next pair of stitches and go to the pair of stitches below it, insert underneath from right to left under both strands, yarn over, pull the loop up through both strands, and then pause. So this yarn over and this strand we pulled up is going to mimic the second double crochet. Then repeat, yarn over, skip the pair of strands, go to the pair below it, and again that pair will be connected to the stitch to the right of it. Insert underneath both strands, yarn over, pull up a loop. Those 2 loops are going to mimic our third double crochet. Then yarn over. We've only got this 1 pair of strands here left. It doesn't connect to the previous stitch, so that tells us it's time to work in the back nub of our next chain. Insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. And those last 2 loops are going to mimic double crochet number 4. So now when I yarn over and pull through 2 8 times, it's kind of like completing all those partial double crochets that we've worked. And since we link it to the stitch to the right of it, it's going to really create this cool look like we're stacking double crochet. And now you can probably start to see the effect taking shape. I'm going to show these steps one more time, show you what this swatch looks like, and then we'll jump in to the big pattern, which is for the hot pad. So one last time, going through it quickly. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. And then yarn over and pull through 2 8 times till we're left with just 1 loop on our hook. Check it out. It looks like we've got 4 rows of double crochet, but we know that this is 1 stitch, this is 1 stitch, this is 1 stitch. So we only worked 7 stitches altogether, but it looks like we've got 4 rows of double crochet. One other thing I want to show really quick. These are really tall stitches. We could make a stitch that is just as tall by simply yarning over. So I could yarn over 7 times, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, insert into my next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then work it all off by yarning over, pulling through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and it would basically be like a double, triple, quadruple crochet. You know how crochet stitches go double, then triple, then quadruple, and so on and so forth? So I could just do that and make a stitch that is as tall. However, here's what happens when we do really tall stitches. We get these big gaps. So mimicking the stacked rows of double crochet allows us to really get the double crochet look with these tall stitches, but there's not these big holes. The holes are similar to the holes that would be in just normal double crochet. All right, now for the fun part, let's crochet the big pot holder. For the hot pad pattern, I am going to work one row, so this is all one row, and I'm going to work 18 stitches wide, and I'm going to mimic the height of 12 rows of double crochet. So like this is all one stitch. It's a stitch that's really tall. It's the height of 12 double crochet. With my yarn intention, that gives me a potholder that's about 6 inches by 6 inches. However, if your tension is different or you're using different yarn, your sizing may differ, or you may simply want to make a different size. So that's why I went through the explanation first of the concept. So if you find that you want to work more stitches across or you want to make it taller or shorter, you have a bit of a sense on how to do that. But what I'm going to do for my potholder is I am going to work 18 stitches, and each of those stitches are going to be the height of 12 rows of double crochet. Since I'm working 18 stitches, I need to begin by chaining 18. So 1, 2, 3, 15, 16, 17, 18. All right, and now I'm going to turn my work, and the first stitch is going to be that alternative turning chain, and we're going to work it in the back nub of the first chain. Since I want to mimic 12 rows of double crochet, I need to stack twice as many single crochet for my alternative turning chain. So that means I need to stack 24 single crochet stitches. To do so, I'm going to insert my hook under the back nub of the first chain. I do my chains a little tight, so that first one tends to be a little goofy to get under. And then I'm going to work a single crochet by yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, pulling through 2. Then I'm going to stack my next single crochet by inserting from right to left under that left vertical strand, and then yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. I have stacked 2 single crochet. Repeat, so insert under that left vertical strand and then work a single crochet. So it's always inserting under the left vertical strand. You're following the steps for a single crochet, and we're just going to keep on working up. At this point, I have worked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochet stacked up, and I'm going to repeat this until I have 24 single crochet stacked on top of each other. I would refer to this as an alternative turning chain of height 24. Yeah, it's going to be ridiculously tall because it's going to be the height of 12 rows of double crochet. All right, check this out. This is our first stitch. It's absurdly tall. This is 24 single crochet stacked up on top of each other. I'm going to count this so you can kind of get a feel for how to count and what this looks like. I like to count based on this left strand. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Alrighty, so now that we've got our first stitch worked, it's time to work our second stitch and connect it to this first one. In my concept explanation, I explained how we skip the top 2 single crochet, and then we're going to connect in every other single crochet that's stacked up. So our process is we yarn over, then we're going to go to our next connection point. So since we haven't connected at all, it's going to be skip the top 2, go to that third one, insert our hook, and then yarn over and pull up a loop. And now we're going to repeat this process. So I will yarn over, go to my next connection point. So from here on out, the connection points are going to be every other single crochet. So skip this one, insert my hook here. Once I insert my hook, I'll yarn over and pull up a loop. Those 2 loops are my top row of double crochet. These 2 loops are my second row of double crochet. I'm going to end up with a total of 12 rows of double crochet, so we've got to repeat this 10 more times. So it's yarn over, skip the next stacked single crochet, go to the one below it, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert in our next connection point, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert in the next connection point, yarn over, pull up a loop. And we're going to repeat this all the way down. Yarn over, insert, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now, we are going to get a bunch of loops on your hook. Don't worry, they can get all bunchy. You'll have plenty of room, even if you kind of stretch them out. Just stick with it, just go with it. Yarn over, insert, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, pull up a loop. Now we're getting close to the bottom, so I've only got 1, 2, 3 left. So I'm going to yarn over, skip this one, go down to my next one, because again, we insert in every other one. So insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now for my last one, I will yarn over. We've only got one left, so we're going to skip that, and then we're going to go to the back nub of our next chain from our foundation chain. And that's the last spot where I'm going to insert, yarn over, and pull up a loop. At this point, I am going to have a total of 25 loops on my hook. It's going to be 24, 2 for each of the 12 rows of double crochet mimicking, plus 1 extra here up from the top of the previous stitch. So now to finish the stitch, just like when we're working double crochet or treble crochet, we do that yarn over, pull through 2 until we end up back at the top of the stitch. Yep, that's what we're gonna do. So it's yarn over, pull through 2, 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 yarn over, pull through 2. We've got like 24 times of this to go. Yarn over, pull through 2, 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 and on and on. You get the idea. We're yarning over and pulling through 2, and we're going to keep working all of these loops off of our hook. And eventually we'll get to the top, and we'll have just one loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and finally, just one loop on our hook. All right, it's gonna look like a mess. Do not worry, it's all gonna come together in the end. Now it's time for our second stitch. It's going to be the exact same steps as this, but instead of connecting to an alternative turning chain stitch, we're going to be connecting to this stitch. So where we connect is going to look a little bit different, but the steps are going to be the exact same. And if you watched the earlier part of this tutorial, the concept section, you probably have a good idea of where we're going to work. But don't worry, I'll walk us through it here as well. So I start by yarning over, and now it's time to insert my hook. If we look at the stitch we just worked where we need to connect, we're going to have all these pairs of strands of yarn. So they're kind of like these little V's pointing up and to the left. So that's a pair, that's a pair, that's a pair, that's a pair. We've got a whole bunch of these. We're going to work in every other one. So I'm going to skip that pair there, and I'm going to come down to this pair, those two strands. You'll also notice those two strands connect to the previous stitch. So that's another indicator that's where we want to work. That's where we're going to insert. So we're going to insert underneath both of those strands. Then we're going to yarn over and pull the loop up through both of those strands. Okay, so that's where we do our insert and our pull up a loop. We're going to repeat this all the way down. Yarn over, skip the next pair of strands, go to the pair below it. Again, it's the pair that connects to the alternative turning chain. Insert underneath both those strands, yarn over, pull up a loop through both those strands, and now repeat. Yarn over, go to every other pair of strands. So skip those ones, come down here, insert underneath both strands from right to left, yarn over, pull up a loop through both of those strands. So it's yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, and we repeat that all the way down. And again, it's every other on these pair of strands. And if you look, the ones we're entering into, they already connect to the stitch beforehand. So I've got to do this for 12 rows. So 12 times essentially. So it's yarn over, insert, pull up a loop. So yarn over, insert, we're inserting under both strands. When we yarn over and pull up a loop, we pull it up through both strands. Yarn over, go to our next connection point, and work this all the way down. Again, we're getting a bunch of loops on our hook. Don't worry about it, it can get all bunchy. That's all good. So yarn over, skip a pair, go to the pair below it, insert, pull up a loop. Then yarn over. All right, so we can tell we're at the end because see, we have this pair here and we don't have a pair below it. So we're gonna skip that pair and then go to our chain from our foundation chain. Again, working in the back nub, yarn over, pull up a loop. All right, we've got 25 loops on the hook, and yep, we're gonna work them off by yarning over and pulling through 2. I'm not gonna show that whole part because it gets really tedious, but it's yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. I'll catch you at the next stitch. All right, we can start to see the double crochet look forming. I'm going to show you this tall stitch again, but all we have to do is just finish working this tall stitch in each of every chain that remains. I think probably the most confusing part is figuring out where to insert, and I do think it gets a little easier to see once we get further away from the alternative turning chain, so let's go through it again. So the repeating pattern is we yarn over, then we're going to insert. So our spot to insert, there's two ways to go about it. We can find every other pair, so skip the first pair and go to the one down here. The other way to identify it is see how this pair connects to the previous stitch. So we've got a hole above it and below it. So this pair that connects, that's where we want to insert our hook. And we're inserting underneath 2 strands. Then yarn over, pull up a loop. Once you get the first one in, again, you just go every other. So we yarn over, skip that pair of strands, go to this pair down here, insert the hook through both of them, split the yarn there a little bit. So insert under both of them, yarn over, pull up a loop through both of them. Then repeat, yarn over, insert into the previous stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert into the previous stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Again, where we insert is where it's connected to the previous stitch. So those 2 strands right there. I'm going to work this all the way to the bottom. Alright, we've almost made it to the bottom of our stitch, so I just worked under those 2 strands. We've just got 1 pair left, so we're going to skip it, and then we'll repeat our process. Yarn over, insert, so this time we're inserting into the back nub of the next chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, and now for the part, the yarn over, pull through 2, do it a bunch of times until there's just 1 loop left on your hook. Ta-da! 1 loop left. Now you can really start to see how it looks like 12 rows of double crochet, because this looks like a row, this looks like a row. Keep going all the way up. I think this is so cool. These stitches are so tall. It might look like a lot of steps, but once you get in the rhythm of it, it's really fast to work these stitches. I think the hardest thing about this is working that first one that goes into the alternative turning chain, but once you start working them into like the normal version of this versus the alternative turning chain, I think it goes a lot smoother. I'm going to show you one more time, but at this point I've gone over everything you need to know. You'll just keep repeating this process, putting a stitch in every one of your chains until you've worked all the way across and worked in the last chain, and then your pot holder will be done. I'm going to go through it one more time, kind of quick, but it's the same thing we've been doing. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, this time we're inserting into the chain, net back nub, yarn over, pull up a loop, and now we work it off. So it's yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And I'm going to keep doing that all the way until I have just 1 loop left on my hook. Alright, got my first 5 stitches work. I'm going to do the next 13 off camera. I just worked my 18th stitch and now our pot holder is completed. It looks like there's several rows of double crochet, but we know that it is all just 1 row worked into the foundation chain from the beginning. A couple notes on the finished product. First of all, I haven't fastened off yet. Now would be the time to fasten off, or if you want to put a border, you could then just continue working the border versus fastening off now. Personally, I think it looks just fine without a border, but a border would be cute as well. Another thing is you might notice this looks a little wonky. There are 2 reasons for that. One is because when I do my chain stitches, I tend to do them tightly, and since I was working on camera, I didn't want to swap in and out hooks. If your chain stitches are a little bit tight, you can use a bigger hook to make them looser. The second thing that has this a little bit wonky is this side's kind of pulling in a little bit. Again, that's just because my tension's a little bit goofier when I'm filming on camera, but my prototype that I filmed off camera with better tension is nice and square. You also saw pop up on screen how long it took me to work the one stitch, and that was going slowly to work on camera. In all, because there's 18 stitches, this project takes me about 18 to 20 minutes. If I were working 12 rows of double crochet, each 18 stitches wide, it would have taken me probably a good 30 to 40 minutes to crochet this. Even though it's the same surface area, by working the stitches all at once and doing that yarn over pull through 2, the whole process just gets expedited a little bit versus having to work each stitch individually. Alright, so at the end of the video, I told you there was a little bit of debate. I showed this to my parents because when I was playing around with this, I was mind blown. I'm like, this is so cool. And when I was showing them, when I had a bunch of loops on the hook, they were saying, well, aren't each of those loops a stitch? And I was like, no. But then I did some more thinking about it, and I think there's two ways of looking at this. And really the debate comes down to, is this normal crochet, or does this technically count as Tunisian crochet? Let's start with my arguments for why I consider this to be traditional crochet. Firstly, in traditional crochet, we don't count every loop on the hook as a stitch. Meaning when we work a stitch, we are going to have a bunch of loops on the hook, but the stitch itself is after we've worked through all the loops and it's a vertical stitch. So we think of stitches in a vertical format and we work loops, pull up loops, pull loops off until we're left with just one loop on our hook, and that's when we've completed a single stitch. That happens when we work these really tall stitches. We eventually get back to just one loop up top, and we can think about our stitches as being vertical. Now yes, it does connect to the stitch beside it, but I still think of it as one stitch. And also, we're working into a chain. And traditional crochet uses a foundation chain that we then work vertical stitches into the chain. The counter argument is that this is essentially Tunisian crochet, just you'd have to rotate it 90 degrees. Meaning that each stitch, instead of being a vertical stitch, if we rotate it 90 degrees, we could think of it as a horizontal row of Tunisian crochet. And if it's Tunisian crochet, these tall stitches would be considered a row and each loop would be a stitch. So it kind of does mimic Tunisian crochet, yes and no. The ways that it doesn't mimic Tunisian crochet is we have a chain that we work into. When we work Tunisian crochet, if we were to think about working in rows like this, we wouldn't have a vertical chain to work into. That doesn't happen in Tunisian crochet. The other aspect that I'm like, it's not really Tunisian crochet is because we work and connect to this alternative turning chain stitch. So again, I'm kind of rotating it 90 degrees. So instead of thinking as tall stitches, we think of it as rows of Tunisian crochet. So personally, in my opinion, I would conclude that this is traditional crochet, just using a very funky stitch, and it technically is only one row because we work 18 ridiculously tall stitches. If you wanted to make this be truly Tunisian crochet, you would essentially rotate your project, you wouldn't have a foundation chain on the left-hand side, and you would essentially work kind of like foundation stitches is what you could think of for the left-hand side. It'd be like in Tunisian crochet when you get to that last stitch before you do the yarn over and pull through 2, you would do a yarn over pull through 1, and then yarn over pull through 2. If you don't know anything about Tunisian crochet, this probably doesn't make sense. Don't worry about it. You can just follow the pattern shown in the video. But I do think it's kind of a fun debate and an interesting question to consider. And I want to know your thoughts. I want y'all to hash this out in the comments. Now let's be kind and civil as we debate, but I want to hear your arguments either way. Is this one row of traditional crochet, or is it a bunch of rows of Tunisian crochet? Let me know your thoughts either way. And whatever conclusion you come to, I hope y'all had fun with this project. I'd really encourage you guys to try this challenge. And if you do try this challenge, be sure to use #HotPadChallenge so I can see what you've created. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on my next video. Happy crafting!